Joining the show today is one of us by way of Elk River, Minnesota. And honestly, too many accolades to do them all justice, but a few that Minnesotans will love. State tourney participant, Mr. Hockey Award winner, All-American, and back-to-back national champion as a member of your Minnesota Golden Gophers, along with endless accolades in the NHL and at the international stage, Paul Martin. Thanks for jumping on with us, Paul.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
And we always open talking to people about the obscure, unique, whatever we want to label it, Minnesota Wild logo. I don't know for you, because you've seen a lot of things, played a lot of places. Have you seen a more unique logo than the Minnesota Wild logo?
Sometimes it's hard to tell. Maybe some unis that aren't as in line. Like at the same time, haven't been paying too much attention to jerseys. Like, and I'm an old a North Star fan. I grew up with the N and the star, and so having the Wild come back, being somewhat biased already, like it was a hard time to get used to the new Wild logo. And I think like it's grown on me to the point where I don't see it as obscure maybe as I used to. I like the Kraken one. I couldn't. Sometimes it's hard to when you make out what exactly what it is that maybe that they should go back to the drawing board. But
well, as you know, this is a Fellowship of the Rink podcast, so a playoff of Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, but we were curious if you have any kind of nerddom or nerd itches you kind of go through, or like any kind of like movie series or book series or anything like that. That you collect cards or anything like that. That's kind of your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I used to collect cards for sure growing up. I mean, I've seen all of the Lord of the Rings films. Like, I am a big sci-fi guy, so I definitely was hooked into those. Like growing up, it was like the Chronicles of Narnia, all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely down for that kind of entertainment for sure. Lately, not as much so as far as where my tastes have taken me. I'm more of a music guy and in the concert realm, but I definitely like a good sci-fi. I was watching, I can't think of what I was watching the other day, but similar along the lines of Lord of the Rings series. So, yeah, I enjoy that for sure.
I think we'll start with the Minnesota Gophers, the back-to-back championships. And I was told to ask how you cut your finger before the 0-2 title game.
How I cut my finger, yeah. So that was... Yeah. After the celebration. Yep. So, when the gloves come off, we were all celebrating, and I think it was Pat O'Leary thought he was really excited and came up, jumped behind me and smacked me into the group. And like, I think I just ended up being on the other end of a hit. And then I somehow someone stepped on my finger. So I'm lucky that it was just a long cut and not anything else, but it made the photo look really cool. Like, bleeding along those lines. So that it's definitely not as cool of a story as if it happened like playing the game, but we can, don't tell anybody.
And how do you guys celebrate after 0-3? Like, where did you guys get beers in Buffalo?
Yeah, 0-3. I think it was intentional. They didn't want us sticking around Buffalo. So they got us right onto the flight, but we were fortunate to have some alumni that were there. Jordan Leopold, not to name any names, that I think had secured some beer and provisions to make it an enjoyable ride back, and probably right to I think now it's the KK Club, college club, but it used to be the library where we used to hang out and spend some time. So yeah, a lot of great memories, a lot of fun.
And we were talking before we jumped into the recording about how awesome it is that Team Minnesota takes down the first ever PWHL title. But it just hits me in a bad way, Paul, that literally the last men's championship in anything was that back-to-back run for you guys. Like that, how do we fix this?
Well, definitely don't have the answers, but I align with your frustration, especially with, the quality of teams that, we're capable of having, especially to compete with other leagues, which is, it's great to see the women have that championship, especially there's some former Gophers there that I've worked with and been able to coach, and just to see them have success. And Darwitz and our goalie coach, Brendan Pottersay, was helping them too, as far as the U of M connection. So it's just fun to see the championship in Minnesota for the girls and get some of that notoriety, and even just the game growing in general, and for all the other young girls to be able to see, those possibilities is huge. But you're right. Like, I guess maybe, the Timberwolves, that was tough too. They get you all excited. They definitely were in most games until the end. So it's tough to see, when you don't get a bone every once in a while.
I know obviously hockey is what you're known for, but like you played other sports coming up, like, you're probably one of the better athletes come from the area. People mentioned like Joe Mauer and Winfield, all this like that. Like, what were your other non-hockey favorite sport that you had, in high school and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I loved football. Football was one of probably my favorite sports. Friday nights under the lights. Also basketball. We were the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade state basketball champs in Elk River. I didn't play hockey my eighth grade year. I played basketball. My friends were basketball guys. But I missed hockey too much. We had a pond behind our house, and started skating, and realized that hockey was, if I was going to go anywhere, hockey was going to be my sport or my avenue, obviously. So that turned out well. But in baseball, we made it to the state tournament in baseball. My senior year, we lost to Joe Mauer in the Cretin-Durham. In Cretin-Durham, he had an opposite field home run, I think in extra innings or end of the game to beat us. So yeah, I just enjoyed, like, I was fortunate to have parents that encouraged me to play other sports, and growing up and not really specialize until I needed to. Which I think made me a better all-around athlete in hockey in general. So those were kind of the 4 main sports. A little bit of track for a couple of years, so definitely ways to stay in shape.
I just wish that lacrosse was the thing back then too, so you could have played that.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's starting to kind of take over a little bit, a little more movement than, say, baseball, for young kids. So yeah, that would have been great to try it out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the trick? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought that we were going to be past this by now with how the Big Ten has thrived in hockey, but people are still just beyond upset that the WCHA does not exist anymore. Like, talk about the old days of the WCHA. Do you miss it as much as all the fans, or do they just need to get over it and embrace the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the option, as far as we can't do really anything about it. But at the same time, we schedule some games that are, the old WC, when you have a Mankato or a Duluth or St. Cloud, which, really shows just how much those games bring, like, the excitement and energy and the local flavor, as far as fans in Minnesota and the North Dakota games. So it's definitely missed. I think there's a different level of intensity when you play those teams, especially the interstate rivals in North Dakota, that you don't necessarily get for us when you're playing Penn State or Michigan State. Some of, obviously they're big games, and you approach it like they're big games, but as far as the competitive nature, and I think the games evolved too, or the league over time, as far as the more skill, and it used to be a lot more physical, than it is now. But I definitely miss those days where, even the parity in the league was, the Michigan Tech, if you didn't show up, those were sometimes the tougher games to play. So luckily we get to schedule a couple of the non-conference games with some big rivals that get interesting. But yeah, definitely miss the good old days, we'll call them.
What's the transition been like for you to kind of go from, playing career, and now you're coaching, grad assistant, are you still in school? I wasn't sure if you finished up your everything yet, but like, what's that transition like? What got you into this kind of role?
Yeah, good question. I think I was pretty fortunate to fall into it after my career ended. I took some time in California to figure out what I wanted to do. I had a tough time, transitioning after hockey, what's next. And luckily I didn't finish school. So they had that opportunity for me to come back and earn my degree, my undergrad. And then some other players had taken some time being a grad assistant, which I have done the last three years, and then earned my master's in youth developmental leadership, which has been a great experience. I've learned a lot, met a lot of great people. And this last year was more of a player development role, but what it was called, but it's basically doing the same thing that we do. So it's kept me close to the game, obviously, to my alma mater, where, I love and really cherish that space for my experience, and just, hope to provide the same kind of atmosphere that I had, when guidance for the guys that I had when I was there. with the staff. And obviously we've had a little bit of success and a lot of fun. So it's kept me in the game and close to it. And I love kind of going to the rink every day. It's been enjoyable couple years, but I'm done with school now and not sure what kind of the cards hold next.
I ran into you just over a year ago in Tampa, where, you know, hopes were very high, had an unfortunate finish. And like I'm sitting there with my dad and my brother-in-law, who are not traditional hockey guys. Like they just kind of got into it because of me and my brother. And they looked at me like partway through the second period, they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose this game, aren't we? Like you watching all of it unfold, like what was the flow of the game? Like where did it all get lost? Like when did you know that things were kind of taking the wrong turn?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were so many Gopher fans there, like 3/4, you know, and like you could see some of the energy, which I think just in general, like you talked about, affects some of the decisions made. I think for us, I think when coach put us into a 1-3-1, which we really didn't work on that much during the year, which is more of a defensive structure, and our forwards, you know, the most offensive and skilled team in the league. It could have been one of the best college teams ever. You know, you had 5 of the players off that team playing in the NHL regularly at the next year. And we didn't have that in our national championship teams, you know? So I think to have them try to figure out a different way to play hockey at that time was tough for the guys, you know, putting forward skating defense and they stopped moving their feet. And so there was kind of a shift in the energy when we did that, you know, and then obviously a penalty late, which is a tough call to make in that situation. And for Quinnipiac, who you got to give them credit, they played a really good system. That's how they play, you know, an older team and stronger and faster. And they just kept to it, you know, and we didn't seem to find a way to weather the storm and to kind of get any of that momentum back as one of those teams. And it's kind of tough because it's like, you know, you have something really special. And then when it doesn't pan out the way it does, it's easy to point fingers and look at things. But I think that was the turning point in the game and the overall energy of what we were, you know, what we were doing.
I know it was like pointing out like who was on the ice to start overtime, right? Or Faber or in the top line. But like I know you guys have started different lines in different periods. But like that was really good executed play by them and that start overtime. Did you see that in pre-scout at all? That the almost like a kind of a set play a little bit?
Yes, I mean, I think it's something that we would have seen or recognized. Obviously, one of the guys fell down, but I think it also is like we probably hadn't, you know, when you go back into the 1-3-1 and you're not used to running it regularly, and then a face-off comes, sometimes it's not secondhand nature. It's like you have to think, and we have some players heading outside the dots or doing things that maybe uncharacteristically they don't do. So in that big of a game, and you know, where you kind of want to be consistent with how you're playing. I think it was tough for guys to, you know, more thinking than just playing at that time. And they made a good play. So.
Yeah. You mentioned 5 guys NHL, 5 really good, you know, rookies last year too. Like Faber, I know you got a chance to work with him a lot. Just what stuck out to you the most watching him as a rookie in the league, as somebody who's played in the league for a long time and knows how challenging that position is for there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just certain players, you know, just have it, all the tools for the most part of playing at an elite level for an extended period of time. And with him, like even though, which is so crazy to think about, he didn't play in the power play for the Gophers, didn't really get that much opportunity. And he has his feet are quick and his brain is quick. So it's like for him, when things move faster, he gets better. And sometimes at the college level on a bigger sheet, you have a lot more time to think about what you're trying to do, what's the right play. And that's, I think, when guys who can see and move at high level, they can maybe not look like they're on the right wavelength. And for me, I always thought he was going to excel more at the next level as he goes, and maybe he would in college, which I think we saw last year, his ability to handle really fast, high-speed situations with the best in the league, just rise to that level because he has that inside of him already. So there wasn't really a lot that we, you know, you teach players like that. It's more about like, okay, what do you see here? Like what you ask them questions, what are your thoughts? And a lot of the times they know the answers, and it's just kind of a reassurance thing in making decisions. And it's been fun to watch him have the success he's had, especially here in his home state. And I'm sure that'll continue.
Is it weird having a Canadian on the roster next year?
We got a couple goals. We had a goalie this last year.
I suppose with close. Yeah. I don't know. I don't connect the goalie sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes they don't count. We don't count them either. So it's it's interesting. I mean, back when we played was one of the first years where like Patolny came from Grand Forks, so technically not a Minnesotan, and we had Peter Kennedy come in. So there's been times in the Gopher history where players are come in and represent other places. So yeah, it's weird to think about because it's kind of ebbed and flowed, but I'm sure the guys will welcome him with open arms. He might receive a few jabs here and there. But it is interesting to see because we consistently have all the Minnesota players, which is kind of cool that it's still continuing.
Yeah, but I mean, what kind of impact is a guy like Matthew Wood going to have on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, talking about your top end caliber players, to be alongside the likes of Jimmy Snuggerud, and depending where coach decides to put him, obviously. But yeah, like we haven't really used the portal that much because usually we have like the players that we have, and it's just changed the landscape with basically the free agency now, where you almost have to compete a little bit to make your roster better. And that seemed kind of like a no-brainer as far as somebody, I think I'm just speaking for myself, not the rest of the coaching staff, but to be able to bring in Wood and have an immediate impact to the team.
Because you had a really good top line last year. Like even though people compare it to the line from the previous year, like you had some really top end guys, and Oliver Moore is a guy, a lot of hype coming in. How did you see him kind of progress? And like, do you see potentially, I don't know how Wood fits in there, the whole thing, but like, how do you see him fitting in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't say too much with the forward lines. That's more of Coach Gordon, Coach, Motzko. I think I'll drop in at 2 cents, but for the most part, they do a good job of kind of figuring out what works through the first part of the season and who's clicking with who. But yeah, Moore was, as a freshman, really came in and established himself, whether it was Pitlick and Snuggie, or moving them around, which Bob likes to do. To get guys going. So he just has all the tools. I think for him, he moves so quick that sometimes it's, like slowing it down, which I think he'll learn as he goes, like that piece of it, because he wants to, be so fast and do so well and shoot so high. He has all of that ability. Now it's just kind of building off of his freshman year, which I think will have an even bigger impact next year.
And what's it like too? Because we've seen of late, a lot of guys are leaving college a lot earlier than, certainly back when you were playing. Were you surprised at all to see Jimmy Snuggerud come back for his third year? And like, how did that all kind of unfold?
Yeah, good question. I mean, maybe a little bit, like, and being part of that process, it's such a difficult situation to manage because you want the kids to be able to decision for themselves, because ultimately it's their decision what they want to do. Like for me, I wanted to stay, after my sophomore year. I technically wanted to stay after my junior year, but there was going to be a lockout the following year, and I'd been playing in the minors. We won 2 champs. So there's so many factors that go into it. And I think the biggest thing is what you want to do. And so you're getting advice from your advisors or agents, your family. There's obviously pressure from the NHL club, as far as you're going to have playing time right away at the end of the year, and you'll be right in the lineup next year, which obviously is not always the case. So it's hard to kind of tell somebody what to do when they have to make the decision for themselves. But Jimmy took time, really, laid it out and thought what was best for him. I know he loves the guys here in the university, an opportunity to be more of a leader of the club. I know education's important to him, and a player that shoots the puck like that and moves like that isn't going to have an issue when the time comes for him. Another year under his belt, I think he'll have an even easier transition. And these are just my opinions. You never really know, right? But, in another year of maturity, because and that's the hard part, thinking as a young kid like Jimmy, like if I don't take this, I'm not going to get another chance or opportunity. And it's kind of like, Brock Faber was the first round to LA, and he didn't go the 1 year, and they traded him to the Wild, and like, look how he did. There's so many things that you cannot control or have the power to control, like whether you get traded, who they bring into your organization. So that's why it ultimately falls back to Jimmy. And I think he felt connected to the guys and wanted to come back one more year and give it one more shot, at a championship with this group of guys, and an opportunity to just mature a little more and have some fun.
I know you're big on leadership, and you have those talks with the players through the course of the season. You brought in speakers and everything like that. And I was curious what kind of the state of the leadership group is right now. You have Koster coming back. I know you lost a lot of influential guys the last couple of years, but Jimmy's coming back. Where do you see kind of that group going right now, where in terms of you feel like there's a number of guys that you maybe surprised you that stepped up in that leadership role that is pretty much needed for this group?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like our work with the leadership group, like the first year or two, we're a little more hands-on, a little bit more information for them. I think, when you have like Brock Faber's one of the best leaders I've been around, even in my, playing career as a young man, and for him to kind of set the pace. And like Ben Myers was the year before him, and also like a very good leader when it comes to by example, and also kind of motivating the guys and keeping them connected. And so then you kind of pass the torch each year. And so for guys like Mason Nevers and Mike Koester, are two also of the best and really represent what Gopher hockey is all about, on and off the ice. Two examples of what it means to be servant leaders for the program. We'll do a great job, and depending who steps up, whether it's, the Huglins or Pitt and, Snuggy, Chesley, Kel Thomas, a lot of guys are really good leaders, even though they're not going to be wearing a letter. So I think it's in a good state, and they do such a good job of monitoring where the team's at from week to week and how to correct anything that needs to be better, and also what's going well. And it's just, I sometimes get amazed at how well they do without us, helping them out, but it's fun just to be there and give them some guidance if they need any. But it's, we're leaving the program in good hands this year with our leadership.
I got to ask selfishly, because you already commented on my jersey before we jumped on here. Grew up a Penguins fan. I wasn't as fortunate as you with having the North Stars around for my early days in hockey. Why did you sign with Pittsburgh over LA?
It's a really good question. I think the easiest answer is they just had more of a pedigree of winning at that point. They had just won a cup a year prior, and the caliber of players that they had was a really good core to have that opportunity again. LA really wasn't established yet, and nobody knew who Quick in net was, who ended up being one of the, better goalies to get between the pipes. So it's just one of those things. You make the best decision at that time with the information that you have, so, looking back, to have 2 cups in LA would be great, and probably some warmer weather, a better tan. But, I loved being in Pittsburgh and some friends to this day. So it was, that was the decision.
When you got the warmer weather and better tan with San Jose, how weird, if at all, is it to like play against the Penguins, who you spent several years with in the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, I don't know if it gets more weird than that. It's especially when you have, friends of 5 years battling out for the Stanley Cup, which was really difficult. Like, I didn't realize how tough it would have been, after the loss and the second guessing or questioning of, that could be that kind of stuff, right? Which is never does anyone any good, but it's still like when you feel like, we have measuring sticks as, what you are as a pro, 1,000 games, Stanley Cup, et cetera, and not being able to achieve that is something I think a lot of guys, whether they admit it or not, is tough. And then to lose against a good group of guys, if it was going to be any and be them, but also just some that was definitely difficult to go through.
You obviously play with a lot of tremendous players in your life. I mean, Sidney Crosby has to be probably 1 or 1A or 1B at this point. Very few people can get him to open up, unless you're on Spin Chicklets podcast, I guess. But like, what's your favorite Sidney Crosby story or memory or moment that many people didn't see, besides from like the on the ice big goals or moments, like the Sid behind the scenes that people don't know?
Yeah, I mean, Sid, for how prepared he is and how hard he works, he does have a really good sense of humor and ability to bring guys together and make them feel welcome. He's one of the best I've seen at making time and space for autographs and for kids. And I'm sure he learned a lot of that from Mario, who is also a very genuine human being for how big of a superstar they are. But like, for me, like, he's superstitious. So he'd always have to do something for each game. And sometimes it required flipping tape, and it had to land a certain way, and he usually would get it but sometimes it would take a while. So you'd have to wait for him to finish doing certain things before you could kind of continue on with your, with your routine. And for a while, I had to do his fighting strap. So that was my claim to fame in Pittsburgh, I think, because he obviously found somebody else to do it and win the Stanley Cups. But for a while, I think that's why I was there, just to make sure his fighting strap was tightened. I don't know if he ever had to use it, so it probably was useless. He probably didn't need me.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, like Joe said, you played with a lot of really interesting characters. I mean, easy ones off the top: Evgeny Malkin, Joe Thornton. Like across all of it, like who would you say was the most interesting person you played with? And do you have any good stories you could throw for that individual?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, really. Like Brent Burns, who I played with and won the Norris one of those years I was with him. He used to be here for the Wild and had all the snakes or whatnot. But once he had kids, he kind of had to get rid of the snakes. But definitely a unique individual. And, I just recall his yell on the ice that he's always open, so like anytime you don't pass it, you'd hear this scream, and you'd have to make sure you get him the puck. But, it's interesting because those guys are all to me like bigger than the game. And Joe Thornton, who obviously has a tremendous amount of skill and points, but just his leadership and his like goofy nature, like just a man child, a kid in the locker room, which the love of the sport, those guys, I think, have the most success that separates them apart is because of their love of the game. The Joe Pavelski's out there before every game and tipping pucks, and he'd be the first one to tell you, like, he can't skate. He's never been a great skater, but he's one of the most accomplished American born players in the game because of how diligent he is at getting to the front of the net and his stick ability at tipping pucks. So, and it's the thing that sets them apart, even though they're very unique, is just their the type of people they are really good humans, good men, and treat their good leaders. That's why they wear the letters, because they're able to, bring the guys together, motivate them and have some fun too. So that's what I miss the most. I don't miss chipping pucks off the glass or, grinding it out for 82 games and getting beat up. I miss the guys in the locker room and having fun. I think Joe was always one of the singers in the shower too. We loved to carry a tune and sing. I don't know if his voice was very good, but just those kind of things that you forget and where you're playing a game and how much fun it is to be around them.
What was exactly in Brent Burns' backpack? Did he ever show you all this stuff? I guess there's a coffee machine in there somewhere. There's something else. Like, I don't know, like certain vitamins, or what was in this backpack?
Yeah. I mean, he'd be doing great now in like the NIL world, where like he had so many people that would send him stuff because he'd be using different products, for promotion and stuff like that. But he'd have coffee, different protein bars. He'd have bands, all kinds of stuff that he would use. He was on the ARP for a little bit, which is a training device. And I never looked in there. Probably maybe a knife or something. He owns a ranch down in Texas, so he's probably got the hunting stuff. But yeah, I didn't ever really gander in there too often. But I don't know.
Man, how's your golf game?
I'm actually getting a little bit better. I'm like I was 2 years ago, not very good. I didn't golf much unless they were like charity fundraisers. And then I joined the club and started taking lessons, and I'm like an 8 right now, handicap. So for me, that's the best I've ever been. And so I actually enjoy golf because I can find my ball on most occasions. It could not be an enjoyable thing to do for 4 hours, but it's been a lot better. You guys golf?
There's an effort. I don't know if I'd call it golf. I'm doing a lot more looking.
Okay.
I think if I get one or two good shots around, keeps me coming back, keeps me motivated to be like, okay, I can still do this. Or like if I can play a whole round with just one ball, like that's a win for me. Like not lose any. So that'd be. But it's fun. I mean, Minnesota too in the summertime. It's a beautiful weather. It's perfect time to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we'll wrap on our final question here on that topic, Paul. It's our Waggle golf question. Everybody go to getyourwaggleon.com, drop in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Paul, if you were going to formulate, including yourself, your ideal golf foursome, who would it be? And it can be guys you've played with. It can be celebrities, dead or alive.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Wow. That's you should prep me there like this. How do you do that on the spot? Do you guys have yours? What's yours?
Ooh. I mean, I'll cheat here a little bit and say one that I just feel like has to be done that no one's said yet. I want in character Happy Gilmore and Shooter McGavin.
Yes.
I want them in the same cart together. Actually, no, I want Shooter in my cart. I'll have Happy in the other one. And for my final person to round it out,
Chubbs.
I mean, Chubbs would be good, but I don't know how I would not bring in Phil Kessel. There's some element he's going to add to it, and he is. I'm convinced he's the most interesting human out there. I know that I'll never have a chance to have a conversation with him because the second he's done with hockey, he is just going to slink into the abyss, much like Dustin Byfuglien. But I think that's the group that I would wrangle together.
Yeah, that's a good group. That's a tough one. I mean, I think it'd be fun to golf with an elite golfer, just how good they are, like a Tiger Woods or a Scotty Scheffler, just for fun, I would also I'm a huge Woody Harrelson fan. I think it'd be fun to see him or like a Matthew McConaughey for some, some one-liners or whatever. And I'm pretty fortunate. I feel like if, it was Jumbo or the hockey guys, I'd be able to find some time to golf with them, but like a Wayne Gretzky would be cool, or something like that, just to kind of round out a foursome.
Nice.
Yeah, off the top of my head. And I'm a big music guy. Like I'm a big Fish guy. Like Trey, he's but he's not a golfer, so like it wouldn't be the same kind of around, But yeah, like a Keith Richards or Mick J, like those guys, but they're not golfers. So I don't know if I'd want to bring them on the golf course, right?
You know what? I'm not good at golf. I'm good at sitting in a cart, driving around and having beers. Like, everyone's got their role. Everyone's got their role.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or I'd mind bringing my grandpa back. I miss him, and he'd be fun to hang out with one more time. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that.
Okay, well, tell you what. To be fair, we'll bring you back on closer to the start of the Gopher season.
Okay,
you'll have plenty of time to think about your redux of this.
Okay, I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. No, but thanks for taking the time. I'm glad you weren't already at a cabin or cottage this weekend. I know it's a typical Minnesota thing to be out and about, but looking forward to hopefully catch up to you again. And maybe we'll pop by the, I don't know when the alumni tournament is, right? The Gopher alumni, is that in early August you guys do?
Yep, early August, I think, second Tuesday maybe. I'm not sure on the date, but yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, come on out. It'll be good to see you.
Who runs the show there? Who's the best golfer when the alumni comes back and plays?
That's a good question. I'm not even sure who would be. There's quite a few. The Hankinsons are really good golfers. I'm not sure who the current guys that are any good. Mike Kester maybe. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It's just fun to get everybody together. So,
how's Jordan Leopold? Is he pretty good?
He's okay. He can hit the ball. Not as good around the green.
We'll have to nudge him with that one. He gave us some few questions to ask you today, so I figured give you a chance to shoot back at him a little bit. So
yeah, there you go.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Good talking to you. Enjoy your summer, and hopefully we'll catch up again later in the summertime before the season starts again.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on. Guys, take care.
Thank you.